Hello, and welcome to Alive or Just Blethering, a podcast where two 30-somethings discuss the music we found and loved growing up. My name is Chris Lavender, and with me is my fellow host, Keith McLeod. Today on Alive or Just Blethering, I'll be taking us through Satellite by P.O.D.
Man, you sounded really deep and sexy there. How's that voice going for you?
I'm not kidding. Having the plague, thanks to my youngest child starting nursery, has been an effort, especially given the current situation we're all living through. Having a cough is like being rejected from society.
Oh man, I have nearly vomited in public places just to stifle a cough. Like, it's horrific.
But yeah, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? And how are our listeners? How is everyone? Nice for you to join us here on Alive or Just Blethering. We're going to talk about Satellite, aren't we?
We are. Yeah, thanks for coming back, everyone. It's been quite nice to see those sweet, sweet analytics coming through. Today I picked Satellite. With some hesitation, I'll be honest. This one was a strange one.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by it as well, to be honest. I mean, we all know P.O.D. Everyone knows Alive and that video and the car crash and the slow motion and blah, 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 blah. And I don't dislike P.O.D., but I don't think I ever went as far as to listen to any of their albums. So what sort of made you... How was this an album that you found and loved growing up?
Yeah, this one came about, probably no doubt through Alive. That that music video featuring Ezra Miller, shot by Zack Snyder. It was it
wasn't actually Ezra Miller, was it?
I imagine it could be, though. Imagine like today they remade that video and they just basically took that scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League. That would be fantastic.
This is how I'm getting old and senile, because just for a second I bit there. For a second that could have been a real thing, but Ezra Miller was probably a 5-year-old when that video was made.
I'd say he was probably a fucking embryo, never mind a 5-year-old.
Probably.
It's 20 years ago, man. 20 years. So yeah, this one, it just fit the mold. It was one of those albums that just was there. They were obviously really popular on your MTV2s and Kerrang TVs. So they were one that I naturally kind of gravitated towards. Listening to it this last week has been quite interesting, because I was very hesitant when I put my name to that, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have to actually go and listen to this, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's probably my TLDR. If you want to tune out, thank you for listening. It's a very
cheers.
Good. It still holds up. So anyway, bit of research on P.O.D. as I never really took that much interest in them as people at the time.
Yeah, no, I don't claim to particularly understand or know much about P.O.D. Didn't really follow them a lot after. I didn't follow them at all. Excuse me. In all honesty, I knew they ended up on a Matrix soundtrack at some point after this, and that's pretty much where I lost them. So,
yeah, you're not wrong there. They're a 4-piece from San Diego in California.
Calabasas.
They're made up of 4 individuals. 2 of them are related. So you've got Sonny Sandoval on vocals, Wov Bernardo on drums. Those 2 are cousins. Tra Daniels on bass and Marcos Curiel on guitar, lead guitar.
Right.
Certain rhythm guitar parts are also done by Wov, the drummer. So during recording, he has a credit for rhythm guitar.
Oh, that's cool. And that's interesting, because I'm looking at the Wikipedia article. No, I'm not. What am I looking at? The Youth of a Nation. No, I'm not. I'm looking at the Satellite. Oh, it is a P.O.D. Fucking hell, Keith. I've got Satellite, P.O.D. and Youth of a Nation open on tabs, and I just went through all of them and I was wrong. I'm looking at the P.O.D. Wikipedia, and 3 of them are sitting with guitars next to Sonny. So that's interesting that the drummer is also a guitarist. Cool beans.
So they started off it was Wuv and the guitarist, or the lead guitarist, Marcos. They were jamming together, and they would play Slayer and Metallica covers at house parties. They had a little band name, the Eschachos.
Eschachos.
But really sadly, after the death of Sonny's mother, he converted to Christianity, and the cousin Wuv asked him to join the band to try and keep his mind off things and just keep him sort of busy. Shortly after, they picked the name Payable on Death, which is what P.O.D. stands for.
That is what it stands for, right? Because my partner asked me earlier, she was like, "What P.O.D? What kind of band name is that?" And I'm like, I think it means pass on death or pay on death or something like that. So it's payable on death.
Yeah.
Yeah, P.O.D. sounds better.
And I've alluded there is the Christianity. This is going to be a thread that weaves itself throughout this episode.
It's probably why I didn't stick with them, in all honesty, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, maybe. We'll come to it. So this was actually their fourth release.
Shit off.
Yeah, they initially had 2 studio albums on a label called Rescue Records. This was a label that was managed by Wuv's dad and Sonny's uncle, Noah Bernardo Sr. Had a quick look at Rescue Records and what they're up to today. Basically, they sign Christian metal acts, for want of a better phrase.
Well, there's a market there for it, so good on them.
And shortly after, in 1998, they were signed to Atlantic. So Atlantic released a major album with them, The Fundamental Elements of Southtown. That came out in August 99. That hit 51 in the US Billboard charts.
Do we know where Southtown is, what that's referencing?
From what I can tell from listening to interviews, it's referencing a district within San Diego that they grew up in.
Right, probably.
And my knowledge of American cities is basically Grand Theft Auto games. So...
Oh, so you mean like Edinburgh?
Edinburgh, the bridges,
yeah, totally.
Las Vegas, yeah, all those Las Venturas and stuff. I can only imagine from the areas that they're living in, these are heavily Hispanic sort of neighborhoods.
Yeah, there seems to be some Hispanic. There is Hispanic vibes on the album, so that's
definitely
that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, and I quite like it when they bring them, when that culture comes into things like metal albums. So you've got that. There's a song on the album, if anyone hasn't listened, Guitarras de Amor. I love guitars.
Oh man, when that played, and I just, obviously it's a little interlude, it's a nice little bit, it's some Spanish guitars, it's cool, but when I read the name and it was like Guitarras de Amor, I was like, oh my god, what is Guitarras de Amor? Like, obviously Guitarras of Love, or the guitar I love, or something, but like, it made me think it was maybe like a scent, Guitarras de Amor. And it's like, I don't know, I'm getting flavors of maybe damp leather, some rolling tobacco, I don't know, maybe some Jack Daniels. Like, oh, that's like a Guitarras de Amor.
A touch of warm maple, just
yeah,
simmering through.
some Sabawood. Why not? Let's get that in there. I had a little chuckle to myself listening to that. Guitarras de Amor. I'll stop that now.
Thank you. So by the time Satellite came out, they already had a platinum selling album that I couldn't name a single song from.
Was that the Downtown from Party Sound? What?
The Fundamental Elements of Southtown. And it
Thank you very much.
Does have a song on it that's called like We're Gonna Party. It's got a literal party song on it.
Sick.
From what I listened to, I had a skim through it in the run up to this, and it's very much it's more of it's not a hip hop album, but it's more of a focus on the rap lyrics than the sort of harder lyrics that Satellite maybe brings to the front.
The album artwork is very MC Escher.
Very much so. Very much.
You know, you've kind of got that weird perspective and things broken apart, and it's like a sort of play on perspectives and stuff like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, the album we're here to talk about, though, is Satellite.
Satellite. I'll never do that again. I apologize for anyone listening who just heard that. Fuck me.
Just broke some speakers there. So the album was recorded at Bay 7 Studios in California between March and May of 2001.
You mean it wasn't NRG?
It was not. It was not. I really hoped it was. When I was doing the research, I was like, please be NRG. It wasn't.
Weren't these guys on?
Wait till you see the fucking names associated with Bay 7 Studios.
Okay, hit me.
I'm gonna name Hoobastank the reason.
Yes, fucking Hoobastank.
3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge.
Oh my word! All right then, pulling on some heartstrings there.
Babylon by Skindred.
Oh, okay, I have mixed feelings about that.
Hours by Funeral for a Friend.
Oh, it's the boys. The boys are in. We're going to cover that one coming up.
There's some less notable albums in as well, and these are funny.
All right,
so
let's go for it.
The next 2 albums I'm going to name were second albums, sophomore efforts, shall we say, from the next 2 bands. The first one, Crazy Town.
Oh, the band Crazy Town.
The band Crazy Town. They recorded their second album, Dark Horse. Another one. Do you remember Edema? Edema?
Yeah, I remember Edema. Yeah.
So they recorded their second album, Unstable, at Bay 7 Studios as well.
Do we do a branch off podcast where we do terrible new metal from when we grew up and it's bands like Edema?
Abso-fucking-lutely. We have to do that.
I'm sorry to anyone listening who enjoyed Edema. I can remember one song and it was fucking woeful. I'm thinking of another band as well. Oh, it wasn't Edema. It was It Will Come to Me Tonight, and I'll just shout it out in the middle of my sleep and I'll never know what it was. But I just remember they couldn't go on tour because their bass player was underage.
Wow.
His parents wouldn't let him leave. At least that was what I remember. I might be misremembering this from years ago, a band I didn't give a fuck around. Oh, that's going to come back. Aiden! It was Aiden!
Oh, wow, Aiden. Yeah.
Remember Aiden?
I do remember. I saw Aiden live, yeah.
On purpose?
They were on the Kerrang 25 tour with Hawthorne Heights, Bullet for My Valentine,
yes.
And who else was on that show? That was a good show.
That's Kerrang as fuck already. I'm loving it. Good times.
Totally. They were fucking awful, by the way. Sorry to any Aiden fans out there. They are one of the worst bands I've ever seen perform live, and I had no idea how they got as successful as they did. So, if you like them, good for you, but they were terrible.
They got successful? When did Aiden get successful? When did I miss that?
Well, they're an American band playing not in America, so that to me is a level of success.
But they were Aiden, so I would take that with a pinch of salt.
They did something. I don't know how they did it, but they did something.
Do you know what? They did more than us. That's the theme of this podcast. Everyone we will ever not review. We're not reviewers. Anyone we will ever go over and discuss that we listened to when we were younger did way more than we ever did. So bloody kudos.
Yeah,
a bloody big old kudos to them.
Well done. 2 30-somethings are talking about you 20 years later. You've left a mark.
Right. They did something right. Aiden and Edema, well done. So where were we? P.O.D.
P.O.D. So the album was produced by a gentleman named Howard Benson. And basically he was the in-house producer at Bay 7 Studios. So all of the things that I've mentioned so far, he was also the producer for. He produced albums like The Reason, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, a few others out there. He's worked with some pretty big names. He started in the 80s in the sort of North California hardcore scene, TSOL. He then moved on to bands like Motorhead, Body Count, and Sepultura. And then effectively he's gone through many new metal, pop punk, and then moving on to the emo act in 2000, including he did the second Papa Roach album, Getting Away with Murder. Was that the second one? No.
Technically Infest was the second,
of course,
their second release, but Getting Away with the Murder was their second DreamWorks Pictures release.
There we go. So he also did like the next Papa Roach album. There we go. I'll fill that one in. And if anyone wants to learn about the previous one, Infest, go check out AOGB episode number 2.
Oh my god, a callback.
Yeah, man. Plugging ourselves.
We just did a callback. That's impressive.
Yeah, had that
As
one
we
written
pat
in.
ourselves on the back.
Yeah. There we go. Well done. He continues to work to today. He's producing work for bands like In Flames, Apocalyptica, and he did like the Of Mice and Men and Escape the Fate albums in 2018. So he's still relevant and still a very busy and successful man. The album was released on, drumroll, September the 11th, 2001. I think that date was incredibly important to this album, and I'll come to it in a moment. Effectively, it got to number 6 on the US Billboard. It spent 5 weeks in the top 10. It became the 26th best-selling album in 2002 in the US. And as of 2015, this album has sold 3 million copies in the US and 7 million worldwide.
All right, so it's punched. It's carried itself.
It's done really well. And the reviews at the time were generally positive. 4 out of 5 stars in Rolling Stone. All Music. Revolver magazine called it one of the 10 new metal albums you need to own. So yeah, it was well received is probably the best way to put that and sum that up. The reason I'm saying that I think the date of its release was important, if anyone has listened to this album, the album has an overwhelming positive tone.
Yes.
To an extent.
There's a couple of songs on there I wouldn't exactly say were positive, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah, there's one big famous one, but you look at a song like Alive. A song like Alive, after your nation has just been attacked and over 2,000 people died in a single day.
3,000.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to over-egg the pudding on them, but yeah, they really, really... That a song like Alive was very much what was needed in the country at that time. Youth of the Nation, probably my favourite song on the album by a long shot. That one, maybe not so positive, but certainly a very important message conveyed within it.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, that got released.
Perhaps not particularly intuitive to September the 11th, but sure.
Possibly not, but that song had its own movie starring Kevin James.
Was he running around a shopping centre? Or was he running around Queens?
No, I have no idea what the movie is, but it's there is a movie called Here Comes the Boom, released in 2012, produced by Adam Sandler's people. And
it was released in 2012, so it wasn't even... Sorry, when you said this song has a film, I thought they've released it with a film, but...
No, they named the film after this song.
Impressive.
And that's again, something that's like, wow, that left an impression with someone.
Is it on Netflix?
I don't think so.
Oh.
It wasn't a box office flop.
Unlike most of Kevin James' films, okay.
Correct. It managed to sell more than it cost to make. Yeah, well done to him. The soundtrack, I might actually have to dig the soundtrack out and give it a listen, because it's got bands like Godsmack, The Refused, Wolfmother.
Wolfmother. Don't get me wrong, Wolfmother must have came out, 2005, 2006, around that time, and I think I was still going to Teen the Park around that time, so I got caught up a little bit in Wolfmother, but then I saw a video, and it was Mike Patton.
Oh, right.
And I think he was playing a festival. I want to say it was a festival in Italy. I don't want to think I'm confusing Mike Patton's relationship with Italy and this festival. I think his wife's Italian. He's done a lot of work with the Italian language and music and stuff like that. But no, I think this festival was in Italy, and he's on the interview. He's on this festival in Italy, and he's being interviewed. And there's a video of this. I can try and find it. Wolfmother are just like sort of bellowing in the background, and he he just looks away and stops, and he was like, "What year is it?" And like the interviewer's just like, what? He's like, what? Who the fuck are on the stage? What year is it? Is that a Zeppelin ripoff? What fucking year is? Like, he was infuriated that like Wolfmother were just a complete and utter clone, or terrible pop clone of Zeppelin or whatever, and he was just like, and since then, whenever anyone says Wolfmother, I'm just like, what year is it? Fucking great.
Thanks for bringing me into
stuff.
that one.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll send you the link. Might even tweet it.
Oh yeah, tweet the link out to our followers. Yeah. 4 tracks got released off the album: Alive, Youth of the Nation, Boom, and Satellite, which you alluded to earlier.
Satellite.
Thank you very much. They all did relatively well in the charts. UK singles, Alive and Youth of the Nation. Alive got to number 19. Youth of the Nation got to number 36. It got to number 35 in Scotland.
Fuck yeah, those Scottish charts, baby. Woo!
Don't know where they come from. Seriously, if anyone has any information about how Scottish charts worked in 2001, I'd love to know more. Please let me know.
Please reach out. Those DMs are slidey. Get on in there.
So, Boom and Satellite, they never charted in the UK as far as I can tell. So, don't know if they weren't US only, but I'm pretty sure they were limited releases.
Boom stands as one of my favourite songs. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a nice song. It's a good one. It's good fun. It's fun song.
You're saying like it's a positive album, and I'm just like, yeah, Boom is just like, fuck yeah. How can you not like react to that?
Bounces, anything.
Yeah, it's great.
I think that, I mean, Youth of the Nation. We have to talk about Youth of the Nation.
Do you want to talk about Youth of the Nation now?
I think we need to get it. We need to cross this one off, because this is important. This is a big song. So firstly, it also comes to the actual making of the album. They were writing the album and recording it between March and May. During recording in March, they were delayed in getting to the studio because of a live shooter incident.
Right.
In their area of the Bay 7 studios. And it was after basically witnessing it and learning about it, they wrote the song Youth of the Nation. So if anyone hasn't listened to the song before or really delved into it, it's a story about 3 different individuals in society that society has let down, effectively. Mm-hmm. One of them being a young girl who is abused and turns to, by the sounds of things, some sort of prostitution or something like that, or drug abuse. There's one which is a school shooter. That one, absolutely, it's, instead of taking the test, they took 2 to the chest.
That I've heard that song over the years, and whether I just forgot the line or whether I just realized it for the first time the other day listening to it, like it hit, like it was what is the line specifically? But who knew that day wasn't like the rest. Instead of taking the test, I took 2 to the chest. And I just heard the line, I took 2 to the chest, and I was just like, fucking hell. Like, it's a great song. It's very powerful, and that line like really, really hit me. But you're saying, is there a third story?
The third one is about someone taking their own life by firearm, effectively. The sound of the gat. So, yeah, it's a really deep song. It is written in real. It's fictitious in its characters, but the situations are very real. They are very much still happening. It's probably the most depressing thing about that song is when you listen to it and like, oh, they were singing about active shooter incidents 20 years ago, and we see them, one a month still. Like,
yeah, I mean, we are obviously born and raised in the UK. You're currently living in Scotland. I'm currently living in England. Like, we didn't get rid of gun crime. We still obviously have gun crime, but after an incident in Scotland in 1997, Dunblane, like Scotland, the UK got away with guns just straight away, just one school shooting and it was done. and guns were essentially banned in the UK. So we don't particularly know what this is like, but it is, as a foreigner, and we have listeners in the US, so by all means tell us to fuck off. But like, as a foreigner listening to like the stuff that comes out of school shootings, like, it blows my mind there is like such a thing as gun lobbyists, and or there's not even that the lobbyists exist, that like people maintain that they have the right to bear arms.
It's in the Constitution. I don't want to say that it was written at a time when it was necessary to defend yourself against armed militia, to form an armed militia. But there needs to be a conversation to be had of how necessary is that in 2021 and going forward. Yeah. Things have changed quite significantly, and there are a lot of mental health issues out there that need to be addressed, and access is key. So the fact that a lot of the things that we're singing about in this song, Youth the Nation, 20 years ago, was written about an event in March 2001, and still, I don't think anything's changed.
There is one part of the song, I think, that if it was written today would be written differently, and it's Little Susie.
Okay.
And when I really sort of, because I've never maybe properly sat down and listened to P.O.D. I've never had them in my headphones, and I've never been like, right, what have you guys got? So maybe this went over my head in previous years if it was on in the background or if it was on TV or whatever. But you've got Little Susie, she was only 12. What the fuck? She was only 12. Where is this story going? She was only 12. She was given the world with every chance to excel. Hang with the boys and hear the stories they tell. Hear the Tories they tell. Hear the stories they tell. She might act kind of proud, but with no respect for herself. She finds love in all the wrong places, the same situations, just different faces. Changed up her pace since her daddy left her. Too bad no one never told her she deserved much better. So, you alluded to it earlier. There's a story about a girl, and it sounds as if she is abused, or the actual sort of line is hang with the boys and hear the stories they tell. She may act kind of proud with no respect for herself. She's still only 12, but I think the difference in this story today would be Little Susie's not responsible for the abuse that she has potentially received out of this. Like, it's the abusers that are at fault. Whether she has respect for herself or not is her issues, but the abuse out of that is the fault of the abusers. Like, she's not to blame anymore. So like,
she's the victim.
She's the victim. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. She is 100% the victim, and it's not. I think that kind of passage almost victim blames. She never had any respect for herself. Well, fuck. Whether she did or didn't, she's still victim of abuse, and that's not her fault. So
she had every chance to excel. Makes it sound like she threw away those chances.
Exactly.
But really, they were taken away from her.
Yeah, 100%. So when I sort of really dug into those lines, like that sort of didn't sit well with me. But I kind of get the story, and I can take that it was written 20 years ago, and I'm sure if the guys wrote the song today, it probably would be different. But still an incredibly powerful song, and probably one of the best on it. One of the best, maybe the best on the album, I'd say.
Yeah, certainly on the album. All the other singles, they do hold up well. Alive, Boom, as we've alluded to, and Satellite. They're really well written, well executed and produced songs. They simply, I think having a well recorded song, as much as it can be kind of scoffed upon in certain circles where, oh, you only like it because it sounds good, like, it's only because it was recorded well. It's like, yeah, but it makes a song sound timeless. Like, if you pick up a song that is poorly recorded, yeah, it's gonna suck when you try to listen to it 20 years later.
Like you said in episode 2 of our live, we're just blethering about Papa Roach Infest. You thought that album sounded like it was recorded 20 years ago, and so that absolutely impacted your enjoyment of that record. Yeah, I get your point.
Interestingly, he the producer of Satellite, Mr. Howard Benson, he is a big proponent of autotune. He thinks producers that don't use it are being stupid. They've got a tool that is there to make their artists sound better. And used properly, auto-tune has its place. I think we've been sort of put into a position where we think that auto-tune is this fakery, this really synthetic voice, especially when it was used to the effect of Cher in Believe, and you've got like T-Pain who basically requires it to exist in his sound.
That's literally what I was about to say. Then I heard T-Pain and Holy Island, I'm on a boat, and my mind was changed. I was like, nah, this is just like another instrument. It's fine by me.
Exactly. It's an effect that producers use either well or use poorly, and there is a balance to be had in anything. There is such a thing as too much, too much of a good thing, and that is one of those things that I think autotune does have a place. It's just not in your face.
Yeah, I kind of jest. Like, I mean, T-Pain, Lonely Island, I'm on a boat, whatever other songs you sort of heard there. At the end of the day, singing, like playing the guitar or the drums or the piano or the bagpipes or going fucking tits out with insert drummer speak here on a triangle, is a skill. It's a talent. If you just paint over that with a computer and autotune, well, then are you really said skilled or talented or whatever? So, like, if it's used to an effect, i.e. like T-Pain, and I don't fucking know T-Pain's music. I think I've heard him around. He's featured on songs. Like, I get The Lonely Island, I'm on a boat is fucking fantastic. But, like, I think he's made it work for him, and then that is his effect. But if you're using autotune to, like, boost what is essentially an incompetent singer.
Yeah, that's when you're needing it to carry the singer. That's a different story.
Like, if I'm shit at...
It's usually used to great effect on someone who can already sing.
Yeah.
But who maybe just needs that. Just like when you're recording guitars, or you're recording a bass, or you're recording drums in a studio, you get takes. You get as many takes as you need. And sometimes there might be that vocal take that was 99.999% there. You just didn't quite crack a note at one specific bit. Just auto-tuning it can just bring it in line. And even then, the guitarist could have been out of fucking tune. He could have had a string that was bummed out by the slightest bit. You could play an album completely out of tune as long as all the instruments are tuned together.
Mm-hmm.
It's all relative.
Yeah, sure.
So auto-tune just brings the vocalist in line with the other instruments.
It's another point that, like, you could be that guitarist. You could have just that micro maneuver, or maneuver's not the fucking right word. That the slightest tone or pitch out, and then the producer could just up it on the computer.
Yeah, ping.
Yeah,
fixed.
I'm just gonna move that little line on that grid, and I'm just gonna up that into the right, and there you go, bloody. That was that solo, mate. That was that bend. Well done. Fucking nailed it.
Yeah. This album for me, I mentioned earlier that Sonny Sandoval was a Christian. P.O.D. were sort of marketed as a Christian nu metal
That's
band.
what I understood, that these guys were saviors. Maybe that's got connotations to it, but yeah, they were a Christian nu metal band.
From listening to interviews with Sonny, the vocalist, he expressed that he never went out of his way to make them a Christian band. He just made music that was what he wanted to make. And I mean, the man is a Christian, so it's very likely that his life experiences that then go into his songwriting, it's bound to bleed over.
Especially if he was born again and sort of brought into the band to deal with the loss of his mother, then 100%.
Yeah. So the fact is, this was one of the first bands that I remember listening to who were openly Christian. And when you were also listening to bands at the time, sort of, if I'll just throw some like Slayer, Pantera, Metallica, bands who are, against, they always feel like they're against God, against
Hail Satan.
faith. Interestingly, saying Slayer, given that Tom Araya is a devout Catholic, but he's not open about it. He is now, but at the time, I don't think he would have been. And it's interesting that this was one of the first bands that I remember sort of being open about their faith. And it's apparently, they take a bit of credit for there being a sort of boon in Christian metal bands coming to the forefront. So bands like Under Oath, Haste the Day, As I Lay Dying, they all had that openly Christian member. Now, As I Lay Dying, that's a story for another episode.
Boy, is it.
Oh boy, is it. Tim, I'm sorry if you're listening.
You're not.
We're going to have to talk
You're not,
about it.
but sorry if you were, but you're not.
But you're not, anyway. Apparently, though, Sonny thinks that they've got some sort of credit to that because they were one of the first big metal acts to sort of break it with the Christian thing on their sleeve type thing. And they sort of normalized it in a sense. At the time, bit of a life story here from me. At the time, I would have been 15, going on 16, and I went through a phase of discovering faith.
Wow. Okay.
And it was one of these, listening to this album. It's one of the reasons it's kind of come up is because at the time I probably would have called myself a Christian, and I was attending certain events and worship sort of things which got me involved in a really good crowd. It got me in a good place, got me to meet some of the best people I could have met at that time, that I needed to meet at that time. It wasn't until coming to university about 3 years later that things changed, and different perspectives, different strokes took me in a different direction. But at the time in 2001, this was exactly what I needed to hear. I was listening to hard music. I was listening to the likes of, we've had Linkin Park and Papa Roach already mentioned. Probably by this point picking up on the Metallica discographies and Slayer and going through the motions of listening to them, and having a band that I could listen to openly with the friends that I'd made within the church that I was part of was kind of important.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. I did not know about that, you bud.
Yeah, I thought it's something that it happened before I came to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it's something that stayed at home when I left home.
Did anything sort of steer you in that direction? If you're willing to talk about that on this music podcast, or was it...
Nothing really in particular. At the time, I was a member of the Air Cadets. And,
okay.
They were looking for. I think there was a local pastor who was just kind of looking for members to sort of join the church, be like a representative between the church and the Air Cadets, and I put my name forward for it and just got involved in the church. And you see what good a church does for a community, and seeing how there are people out there that just depend on their faith, and it's interesting to sort of see that world and what it means to other people. I made some really good friends throughout it. Interesting story. The guy who was sort of running it, he was sort of doing his like training. He was a trainee. So one of his training parts was trying to incorporate the youth into this old-fashioned church, for want of a better phrase. And he was only in our area for maybe a year, 2 years, I believe. And then once he'd done that sort of trainee section, he was given his own parish. The parish he ended up going to was down south.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the last I saw of him until I went into work. Would have been 12 years later.
Wow.
And he was sitting in the call center I was working as.
Really?
And I was in his team.
No way.
surreal.
So he didn't quite make it to the end of the training or whatever. Worked his way out.
Things changed in his life, significantly
sure.
so.
Sure.
He's now back involved in the church, as far as I know. I've not spoken to him in a long time, but it was a part of my life that I'm not gonna shy away from. But an album like Satellite was really important to have the knowledge that it's okay to be Christian and listen to this type of music.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. Incredible. Really, that it had that much of a incorporation in your life at the time of what you were doing, where you were going, and not just on a musical journey, but on a faith journey, and that you were able to actually pull those two together and combine them, and P.O.D. was that thing for you. I had no idea that the album actually had that sort of significance, and wow, cool.
Yeah, every album's going to mean different things to different people, but that is the reason I chose Satellite. It might seem like a bit of a left field choice if you were listening 40 minutes ago, but there we go.
Fuck me, man, and I picked Limp Bizkit last week. I picked Limp Bizkit because I liked the hat. Fucking hell.
I like the hat.
Side note, I was also in the cadets, Air Cadets, for 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
I lasted 6 weeks because myself and 2 friends went. So 3 of us in total. We were really interested in it. I sort of, as a kid, always wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And
who wouldn't, right? Let's like, as a kid, being a pilot is up there with being an astronaut, and yeah, cool as fuck.
And it's even, you see like 1 30-second clip of Top Gun, and you're just like, fuck yeah, I want to be a fighter pilot and stuff like that.
That's it.
And
best recruitment video the Air Force ever made was Top Gun.
Oh, absolutely, and they're about to make a sequel. And basically on like our first day or first or second week, the CEO of that cadets went on maternity leave. But
right.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, the CEO, commanding officer, is the only person that can swear in new cadets. It has to be like an Air Force member. Can't just be like another high-ranking cadet. It has to be an Air Force member to swear them in. Am I misremembering
we had
that?
3. We had a commanding officer. Obviously, he was like I think it was flight sergeant was like the highest sort of member that they had, and they had I can't remember the names of them. They get drilled into you as well. I'm disappointed in myself for not remembering all the levels because you get a rhyme in it.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
But we had like 3, so, and I'm sure they always just were like, well, if he's not in, he can do it, and if he's not in, they can do it. Unless your sort of detachment had just one.
Well, from what I can remember, and of course we are talking years ago, we are talking 20 odd years ago, from what I can remember, it was this one CO, and she went on maternity leave, and the guy running it was the highest cadet, like this 21-year-old guy who hadn't officially joined the Air Force, or maybe, I don't know, he would have been maybe a bit younger, whatever. He hadn't transitioned from the Air Cadets to the Air Force. He was not officially an officer in the Air Force yet. So there was no one to sign us in to the cadets. So I had to drill for 6 weeks.
Yeah, that'd suck.
We were just out, I think it was once or twice a week, maybe just once a week. And for 6 weeks, we just turned up and practiced drill. There was like 6 of us in total that just did drill. And we were just like in our civvies. Mm-hmm. Like, it's fucking so funny to talk about this now. But like, we were just in normal clothes while everyone else was in their cadet gear. And after 6 weeks, I was just like, I'm fucking marching in my sleep. I don't care anymore. I'm going. And I never went back. And two of us never...
If that was your experience, I don't blame you.
Yeah. 2 of us...
Wow, I thought I had a bit of a weak experience in Air Cadets because we only got to do things very, very rarely. We turned up twice a week, and it was a lot of drill, but a lot of it was learning about the Air Force, sort of like a 2-hour class, if you will, twice a week on just learning about the Air Force. We did a little bit about learning about planes, a little bit about learning about rifles.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe once every couple of months or once a month, we got to go shooting on the range. So we had a range that was attached to it, and that was just shooting like 2.2 rifles, which was always great fun. And if you got your marksman badge, when you could shoot 5 bullets from 25 yards into the space of a 2p piece.
What?
So shooting a 2.2 bullet into the size of a 2p from 25 yards.
I understand everything you just said there, but it still makes no sense.
But then we got to go flying, but there was detachments in our area. There was other units, and they would do this stuff. They would go like flying like every week. We only went flying like once a year.
Those bastards.
It always felt like whenever we had like camp week, so camp was probably the best time you'd have of it, which is just going away for like a week, living on an Air Force base. That was great fun.
Yeah,
we're talking about air cadets, and we should be talking about P.O.D.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Just as we're both talking about this, we both sort of had a similar experience when we were younger. How long were you in the air cadets for?
Probably about 3 years.
Wow, and I did 6 weeks. But yeah, I'm just thinking now. I'm just like, oh my god, it's totally a recruitment for the We're recruiting kids into the fucking services. Like, I think right now I'm totally against the concept of the cadets or ever. Hey, if you've been part of the cadets and it's been good for you, then fucking A. But man, I'm in a place right now, and we need to get back onto P.O.D.
It gave me a lot of confidence, and
Great.
It gave me the chance to meet new people and new experiences. So
I think I can
you.
still do drill. So we all learned something.
Good. Right. Anyway, on an about face. So 2021. I'm listening to this album.
About face.
We've kind of touched on it. This album still contains some bangers. This has got some really, really strong musical songs in it. The singles aside, I still think there's a couple on this album that are really good. Masterpiece Conspiracy. Anyone who listens to bands like Knocked Loose, Jesus Peace, anything really fucking heavy, the outro to Masterpiece Conspiracy is just this really brutal breakdown, which I wouldn't experience again until maybe 5 or 6 years later when my music tastes moved into much heavier territories. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to spot that. Gonna be honest, there's some filler on this album.
There is more filler than a persimmon home on this.
Hey.
Still your joke. Still your joke. I changed the developer.
The filler is a bit dominant, and I think you put it really well. So I'm giving you credit for this joke before I say it. This would make a fantastic EP. This
would be a great EP, because I think pretty much everything after, for me personally, I don't particularly agree with Masterpiece. Good Lord, Masterpiece Conspiracy. I don't know if it's just albums from the 2000 2001 or just the shit that we listen to, but pretty sure every album we've listened to, maybe bar Linkin Park, has had a song about backstabbers or, being betrayed or, like confronting someone who has wronged you in some way, and Masterpiece Conspiracy does that for me. And by the end of it, I was just kind of laughing because the guy's just like repeating backstabbers or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, fucking
dun 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 backstabber. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I love it. Yeah. I'm all about it.
I'm glad you like it. But everything up until about track 10 I think is great. Although, do you know what's funny? On the album, they've got for track 10, let me, just so I don't get it wrong, it's track 10 featuring Christian of Blindside, right?
They had to put what band he was in.
I didn't know it was banned, so I just googled Christian of Blindside because I thought that was the band. I thought, because we've just talked about how they're a religious affiliated band and they're a Christian new metal band and whatever, I thought Christian of Blindside was this establishment, this thing. So when I googled it and found out it's a Swedish band with a singer called Christian, I was like, fucking hell, Keith, what a dickhead. But yeah, like Ghetto Masterpiece Conspiracy without Ja, I'm not massive fans of. So for me, really everything after 10, minus some of the filler in the middle, like this takes a dip, and as such, that means this album would be a great EP.
Yeah, and I respect obviously the influences that are involved in this, but there are two songs which are reggae songs, and or they delve into reggae, which it just doesn't fit. I would expect that to be on a different album or a different artist, but you've got Ridiculous featuring Ika Mouse, and Without Ja Nothing featuring HR. Now, Without Ja Nothing starts off. Now, bear in mind, it's just at the after Masterpiece Conspiracy. You've just had that really heavy breakdown. Mm-hmm. And Without Ja Nothing kicks in, and it's a fast paced punk rock, going for it, hell for leather. And then it turns into a reggae song.
Then it chills
and I'm
out.
like, it totally chills out. I'm like, where did oh man, they had this brilliant pacing going, and like we've mentioned, the sort of the album peters off in the middle of around after the track Satellite, believe it or not. You've got your Guitarras de Amor and Anything Right
de Amor.
and then Anything Right and Ghetto, which are probably two of the weaker songs on the album. And I was like, oh, Masterpiece Conspiracy brings it back, and then Without Ja Nothing, I was like, oh, here we go. And I was like, where on earth is this going? It really rocked the boat at the end, unfortunately, and I couldn't agree more to your sentiment of this would make a brilliant EP, or even, I mean, it's an hour long. It's a 52-minute album.
53:04, yeah.
Yeah, you could trim 4 tracks off this, and it would still be a respectable length.
You didn't need Celestial, and you didn't need Guitarras de Amor. I appreciate Guitarras de Amor, but I don't think
just for the name alone.
I don't think you needed it. But I mean, there's obviously some Latin vibes in here, and they're expressing themselves with Guitarras de Amor, and with the, I'm gonna have to do it every time now, with the
Yep.
with the Latin guitar and stuff like that, and that's cool. But yeah, you take Set It Off, Alive, Boom, Youth of a Nation, Satellite, and The Messenger.
Stick Masterpiece Conspiracy on there. Go on. Let's
No,
be
you
generous.
would, I wouldn't, and you've got a banging EP. I don't have anything against Anything All Right. Anything's all right. Anything All Right is fine.
With Christian of Blindside.
With the Christian of Blindside.
I don't understand why they can't just put his full name. Just put whatever. I don't know what his surname is, but surely you've whenever you say it's featuring an artist, you just give them that name. You don't say what band they're in as well.
His full name is Christian Lindskog.
Maybe that's why they didn't put it on.
Lindskog. Lindskog.
Yeah, I can see them not doing that, but I think Blindside are a very popular Christian band. If I'm not mistaken.
Blindside is a Swedish post-hardcore band from southern suburb of Stockholm, Sweden, formed in Stockholm in 1994 as Underfree. Oh Christ, thank fuck they changed their name. They changed the name to Blindside. Blah blah blah. Swedish company. Came out 2000. P.O.D.
Surely we mentioned by now.
The group received greater attention in 2001 when they toured with P.O.D, resulting in a contact with Elektra. Who the fuck are Elektra? Presumably. Oh, Elektra Records. In 2002, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they toured with Hoobastank.
Okay.
We could maybe do Crawling in the Dark as a single, because that was a jam.
Yeah, so they clearly had some decent enough chops to get involved with P.O.D later on after touring with them. So that's really cool. But yeah, why don't they just use his name? Anyone knows the answer to that, please do send us a tweet, because it'd be really interesting to know why they justified it in Christian of Blindside rather than just Christian.
Christian Lindskog, if you're out there with us, hit us up, LGB Podcast, on the tweets or Instagrams.
So yeah, final thoughts on this album. It still holds up in 2021. I would listen to it again, which is more than could be said for other albums we have perhaps touched on.
Mm-hmm.
It really was important to myself personally, but of course everyone's experience with an album is going to be different. If there was one thing you were going to take away from today's episode, Go and listen to Youth of the Nation. Put yourself in a nice quiet room. Listen to that. Listen to the lyrics. Listen to what it's telling you. And if you think it's not right that we're still battling these same battles, what can be done about it? If you have the power to do something about it, try and do something about it.
Wow, powerful. How am I supposed to follow that? Yeah,
I don't know. Thanks.
yeah, like Youth of the Nation is a very somber song. Lav saying go sit in a room and listen to it. You might want to do that with friends, because it's incredibly powerful, and it still stands as a great song. The album itself, I've got to be honest, don't think I've ever listened to this album end start to finish. And when I put it on earlier, holy crap, I thought it was like someone had taken 2 pieces of white bread and just put some mayonnaise between them, and that was your sandwich. I was like, this is the blandest stuff I have ever heard.
Sometimes though, all you need is a mayonnaise sandwich. You just don't want to. You don't want to surprise yourself. You don't want to overdo it. You just want something completely bland and flavorless, just to get you through the next 53 minutes.
You just want to eat beige for 53 minutes. That's all you want to do. You might as well just suck on a vanilla.
Not all the time. Not all the time. But sometimes you might want to.
Well, I didn't want to begin with. But it grew on me. It absolutely grew on me. Set It Off is kind of a bit of a generic start. I have my issues with Alive because I think after what we've talked about, it is maybe a song about his mother, but for me it still carries heavy religious connotations, and I kind of can't get into it for that. But then, boom, Youth of the Nation, Satellite might have some religious connotations as well, but not as heavy for me as what Alive does. And then the album goes on its way out, and of course it gave us the gift of Guitarras de Amor. But
that I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna make sure that you get that tattooed on you.
Guitarras de Amor.
Pohom.
Oh, I didn't do it.
Guitarras de Amor. Pohom.
What does Pohom mean?
For men.
Guitarras de Amor. Pohom. I'm sorry for butchering the Spanish language, but we were texting earlier midweek talking about it. Obviously, you were like, it's a solid 7 out of 10. I think that's generous. It is a great 5 out of 10, maybe a punching 6 out of 10 for me personally. And again, I have no sort of, similar to White Pony, like I have no connotations with it. Like I have no affiliations. It doesn't go back to me for anything. Obviously, Alive and stuff like that sort of does, but yeah, I don't want to get into it too much, but like I sort of struggle with the concept of a religious band because I struggle with the concept of religion. This isn't a soapbox. I'm not going to go mental on it, but like it's just not for me. So
okay.
In saying that, I don't exclude religious bands. Like I think the Devil Wears Prada are a religious band,
who, by the way, have new tracks released at the moment.
I heard a recent track, but I've not heard the brand new one that came out like maybe Friday.
Very good. I will say it's very good. It's you like Dead Throne?
Yeah.
It's very Dead Throne.
Ooh. I know a lot of people don't like Dead Throne, but I will probably talk about it in a long time to come, hopefully. And Dead Throne was where I found Devil Wears Prada, and I worked backwards and then went forwards. So, again, Tim Labassi is on Dead Throne as well, mentioned earlier. But
I'd love to do an episode.
Pleasantly surprised by Satellite. 100%. It got better. It ended on a high note for me, but I'm probably not going to go back to it. It's something I'm glad I've revisited. You've made me revisit it, but still a bit of a mayonnaise sandwich for me.
A mayonnaise sandwich. That's the final rating from yourself. So, I don't think there's much more we can add about Satellite. What are we going to talk about next time, Keith?
I'm going to take us off the new metal bandwagon. Is that okay?
No. We've carved a niche for ourselves. Where are we going?
Well, I hope people don't drop off. But if we had met where are we? If we had met 10 years ago, or maybe 18 years ago, and you'd asked me, what, 18 years ago? How did I go from 10 to 18? That's fucked. If we had met 13 years ago, there we go, there's the maths. If you'd and asked me what's your favorite bands? What's your top 3 favorite bands? I'd be like Rage Against the Machine. I'd be Incubus. And I would say Muse.
Are we going to listen to a Muse album together?
We are going to go. I hope you like your Symmetry, because we're going to Origin of Symmetry, baby.
Ooh, there's one I've not heard for a long, long time.
Get your plug-in babies out. Get your fucking newborns. Get your whatever else came off of that album.
That's the 2 I know.
And I'll set you a challenge now, actually. This could be a bit of fun. I'll set you a challenge now. When we record next time, I want you to tell me which song he plays the 7-string on. Because Matt Bellamy plays a 7-string. I nearly said the title of the song. Matt Bellamy plays a 7-string on Origin of Symmetry. And it is probably my favourite song on the album.
Fantastic. I am quite excited to hear it then. Wonderful.
Bet you didn't expect it to be a 7.
Well, as long as I can give it more than 7 out of 10, and it's more than a mayonnaise sandwich, then I'm sure we absolutely banging.
Hey man, even if you do think it's a mayonnaise sandwich, you're wrong, but that's fair enough. Sometimes you need a mayonnaise sandwich, apparently.
Sometimes you do. Anyway.
All right. Take us home, man. Take us home.
I'll take it over. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been Alive or Just Blethering. Please head over to our Instagram and Twitter at AOGB Podcast for all our latest updates. Next time on Alive or Just Blethering, Keith is going to be taking us through The Origin of Symmetry by Muse.
Or Guitarras de Amor by P.O.D.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.
Good night.